Don't listen to any of the tier lists because they're all garbage. No, I'm kidding. Tip number 1 is really to play Wuthering Waves your way. Now, I think it's really important to keep this in the back of your mind, okay? Because there's going to be a lot of information coming at you guys. Oh, confined to this list, this unit is going to be meta, it's going to be necessary. This unit does this, that. Listen. Enjoy the game for what it's worth. And I will say, as a player that plays CBT1, which I played with all 5 stars, and CBT2, where I played with no 5 stars and only 4 stars, I think it's really, really important to kind of keep that in the back of your head, that this game is going to be mainly about your experience and the skill level that you have, and not so much about just individual units. They are going to matter, but it's not going to matter as much as you might think. And so we're going to be getting into the top 5 things that every free-to-play player must know. And this is just so that you guys can make sure that you're always safeguarding yourself and making the best decisions according to what you might have on your account. So let's go ahead and let's jump into it. Quick disclaimer, some of this information is subject and can change. This is coming from CBT1 experience and as well as CBT2 experience rolling into official release. Now, getting into tip number 2, I think it's really important for you guys to actually understand how powerful these freebies and how many you're actually getting. So number 1 is actually going to be Mel, aka also known as female, Rover, which is technically considered a 5-star, okay? Just want to put that out there. You're also going to be getting 3 members from the initial cast, which is going to be Yang Yang, Baijert, and Cheshaya. And then later down the line, as you're progressing throughout the game, once you clear a certain floor in the tower mode, you're also going to be gaining a character named Yuan Wu. And then logging in after a certain amount of days, you're going to be gaining a character named San Hua. Okay, now with all these characters, they all bring something unique to the table, and we're going to touch on those things just a little bit. Rover has to be easily one of the best MCs in any gacha game. Now, Rover is not only going to be providing you with some amazing skills from the normal to the outro intro skills and as well as the ultimate attack, but it's also going to have really good coverage in between the skills and just in terms of the gaps that you might have present itself sometimes. Now, of course, with the time stop ability, this is going to be one of the huge gimmicks that is unique and exclusive to the Rover. So if anyone tells you that the Rover is not a good character, they're literally lying to you. Okay? Like seriously, they're lying. Yang Yang might be one of the most important characters on your account, providing you AoE damage and as well as AoE grouping for you to be able to collectively group up all of the Echo hordes that you're going to be fighting. Now, of course, with this character, she's fast-paced, she's very fluid, and she's very fun. Probably one of my personal favorites, but nonetheless, when you are utilizing a character like this and utilizing her ultimate, you have to make sure that you are facing the proper direction or at least locked on to who you are trying to aim it at, because otherwise it will completely whiff. So it does require a little bit more skill, and really I would just say a little bit more attention if you're going to use her. But you guys are better than me at this game. You'll be fine. Baijert is going to be one of the first healers that is provided. And not only is she going to be healing, but she's also going to be providing you with ranged glacial damage. Now, her summon, which I can never remember its actual name. Let me know in the comment section down below if you remember this crap's name. I don't know why I never remember it. But this thing is able to come out and is going to be basically doing the perfect swan dive on everything that it possibly can within a certain radius. Now, of course, with this is going to give you a little breathing room so that you're able to kind of see what's happening, and if you need to dodge, you can dodge appropriately. Now, I will say this is definitely going to be a unit catered more to those that might feel the need to have heals, but it definitely is not emphasizing that you need to have a 5-star healer. They give you such an amazing 4-star one off rip. San Hua is going to be one of the login freebies that you're going to be getting, and I promise you she is definitely worth it. Now, I want to give the disclaimer, she is going to be a little bit more technical than some of the other characters. Now, there are technicalities to all of the characters, but she's extremely technical just in terms of using her fort skill and to her resonance skill, and it's just purely because it's all about the specific and accurate timing to get the ability to be its most potent version or to do the most damage. Now, of course, if you're able to execute this, you usually visually can tell because, man, those icicles on the field are going to be popping off. And the really cool thing about her is that she's a precision character. So she's very precise, she's very quick, and of course, just like Yang Yang, she's very fun nonetheless. Yuan Wu, lastly, is definitely no slouch. This is going to be the first gauntlet and electro unit on your account. Now, when utilizing his resonance skill, you're actually going to have him perform a pillar drop, which is going to allow him to do a couple of different things. You're going to be building up your fort circuit, as well as having the opportunity to deal electric DOT damage, and of course being able to buff electric units. Now, with that, this is going to lead you into a little bit more of a mechanic that's a little bit more gimmicky, where he's able to power up his abilities, and essentially you can visually tell because it's just a whole bunch of electricity going all over the place. Now, with his ultimate, it's just going to be a super power punch, which is definitely going to be super impactful. But I think it's really important for you guys to check out this video that I have linked down below that goes a lot more in depth in what Yuan Wu is doing in his chaining, because chaining is also going to be really important. But all in all and through, that is all of the freebies that you're going to be getting. And we're going to have more in-depth videos as we push closer and into the release of the game, where we actually start honing in more on team comps and even more so what these units are bringing to the table as we look at specific numbers and in-depth stats. Oh, wow. Oh, you're still here. Oh, that's right. Tip number 3, pay attention to how much of your resources are going into your resonators. And guys, for the love of God, please don't feel like you have to perfect your stats right now. Now, I will say, obviously going into Wuthering Waves, we're going to be in the early game. And it's really important to paint this picture. Progression. Progression is going to be one of the big things that you are going to want to have no matter what kind of player you are, whether you're free to play or pay to win. But here's the big difference. The pay to win have purchase or buying power, whereas as a free to play, you don't. You only have the ability to do things in an efficient manner, and that's really going to be the thing that you have to play into the most. Now, with that, that means that when you're looking at your DPSs, for example, I would say you would want to, on average, you want to have about 3 DPSs built, and this could be a combination of a main, sub DPS, and another main. It just really all depends on what exactly you plan to do. Now, of course, with that, when you're looking at your supports, I will say this is for your early game, okay? Because like for your DPS, you probably want to bring them to about level 80, whereas when you're looking at your supports, they'll be fine at about 60 to 70, depending on what they're doing. And this is something, again, for the early game, guys, because a lot of people are going to make a big deal about, oh, well, you know, Zox said, I said early game. I said it, you know? So either way, you really want to make sure that you're not dumping too many resources into your units right away, because you really want to make sure you're building up the most important things. And that would, of course, be gatewaying us into your echoes, aka stats. And that was something that we had just completely blow up in CBT2, was that if you don't have the right stats, if we don't have 100% crit rate and 300% crit damage, you ain't doing nothing right. Like, that's just not true. People were optimally clearing content with 30% crit rate, 40% crit rate to like 100 and something crit damage. Like, it wasn't really necessarily about that ratio, because again, you have to factor in how many times does the unit hit, how often are they hitting, the attack speed, all these different variables kind of come into play. And then also what is required for you to be able to beat that content. Like if you're doing the hollow battles, it might actually be more of a thing for you to have better stats. But I would even argue the more that you just kind of invest into your unit's baseline, the better that they kind of tend to perform. And with the data that we have for CBT2, which was about a month or so, we were able to completely debunk the fact that you need 100% crit rate and 300% crit damage. Now, it doesn't mean that this won't become a factor later on, but it is definitely good to know that you're doing just fine, okay? Don't let them have you feeling like you're garbage, because I promise you, you're not as bad as me. Tip number 4, do not make the mistake of inefficiently utilizing your stamina. Now, your stamina, aka wave plates, is definitely going to be a crucial component to your progression, especially because, again, this is what you're playing into as a free-to-play player. Now, one of the big things to actually note is that there is going to be an EXP dungeon that's going to be dropping EXP for your echoes, for your characters, for your weapons. That place is garbage. Now, unless they do change it, because it is subject to change, your place of farming or investing your wave plates is going to be in your world bosses. The world bosses are literally going to give you the highest efficiency output when we're talking about essential materials, EXP, and many of other resources that you're going to need to further invest and build up your character. Now, it is going to be really important that you obviously pay attention to what units you are actually building, because according to that would determine what world bosses you'd be farming. But farming the proper world bosses, at least for the early game and thereon until something changes, is going to be your most optimal way of utilizing your wave plates, and really is going to give you a pretty streamlined way of progressing throughout the game. I almost forgot to mention that while you're exploring out in the world and Wuthering Waves, you're going to be coming across chests as well as dimension pockets, which will be giving you some of that extra EXP that you need for your weapon, character, and as well as your echoes. And then from those dimension pockets, you'll be acquiring the tuners, which are going to allow you to unlock some of those substats. Now, again, there's going to be other ways via events and things of that nature that we'll have in the game for you to be able to acquire that, but that's just essentially that. Tip number 5, save, 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 save. I cannot stress that enough, guys, that your premium currency, and more specifically, your limited banner currency, is definitely going to be something that you want to hang on to. Now, of course, this kind of ties into premium currency usage because you can use it for a couple of different things. You can use it to regen wave plates, so get more stamina, to have more progression, as well as obviously converting it into standard pulls, which I don't recommend doing that. Don't do that at all. You can get limited pulls, and as well as converting it to the limited weapon banner pulls. So there's essentially 3 different things that you can do gacha wise with your premium currency. One thing that I was even going to attempt was to actually try to hoard a whole bunch of currency for the limited banners, so that I'll have the opportunity to not only pull whatever limited unit I wanted, but also their respective weapon. Now, of course, this is going to be something that I would advise a lot of free-to-plays to do, especially if you are trying to get the full spazazz of a character. But at most, you really just need the character. I think you can make do. Like, I played all of the beta with a 3-star weapon on my Rover, and I did just fine, right? Now, I'm not saying you want to keep a 3-star weapon on them indefinitely, but it's just the point I'm making, right? Now, of course, with that being said, I think that ultimately is why I'm just absolutely in love with this game, is the accessibility to being able to beat the game with much lower rarity units. And so that makes it, in turn, it gives you as a free-to-play not really buying power, but the power of choice, so that you don't feel like you're being, like, you know, kind of sucked into the concept of being a meta slave, or you have to get this unit because it's the only thing that's going to allow you to be able to progress or clear something. You really are getting an opportunity, which is honestly really unique, for you to be able to really just aim for the things that you want. And of course, I would also argue that if you are playing efficiently, you would then be aiming for things that would synergize for whatever team comps you're trying to compile, or even an attribute that you might be missing on your account, so that you can have that advantageous unit when doing the respective content for that. Now, of course, there's so much more that we have to get into, and we're going to have a crap ton of other videos doing so. But that is going to be the top 5 things that I felt like free-to-play players needed to know before jumping into Wuthering Waves.